E aí, galera do YouTube, tudo bom? Aqui tá tudo bom também. Estamos de volta aqui com Vampyr. Exatamente da onde paramos no último episódio. A enfermeira Dorothy fica ali gritando na minha porta. Acho que ela quer que eu vá atender um paciente novo. Mas antes de prosseguir, curta, comente, compartilhe com seus amigos e se inscreva no canal para dar aquele help. Vamos nessa! O que foi, moça? O que foi?
Yes, Nurse Crane? How can I help you?
I'm so sorry. I know Dr. Swansea wanted you to rest, but we have somewhat of a crisis.
Pode
A
falar.
crisis, you say?
Our supply of antiseptics is nearly depleted. I was hoping there was another box up here, but...
What type of hospital are you running? No antiseptics?
You have been away too long, Doctor. With the war and now this epidemic, supplies have been running scarce for months now.
I may have a solution. In France, during the war, drugs shortage was a daily problem, and we had to use our wits to overcome the shortages.
However do you mean?
Usar
If
bebida
combined
alcoólica.
correctly, certain household chemical products can be used in a pinch instead. Now, where's the hospital storeroom?
The storeroom? Fat chance. This is the Pembroke, and space is luxury we don't have. Everything used to be stored in the old morgue.
Perhaps I should look there first. Where is this morgue?
It's the large building behind the hospital. You'll need to go in the back door because it's been sealed off for sanitary reasons. Take this key. It opens a small back entrance at the end of a narrow street.
The abandoned morgue behind the hospital. A small door at the end of a narrow street. On my way, then. Thank you, nurse.
Ok.
It's locked, all right.
Tá. Beleza. Vamos correr lá então. É pra cá. Tá. É aqui.
It's locked. Scowl voices in the garden. I should investigate. If they were to find somebody.
Achei. Putz, deixa eu trocar minha arma, mano. Eu quero outra arma. Quero essa aqui. Quero equipar essa. Como que eu equipo? Eu quero coisa. Deixa eu ver. Como é que eu equipo a arma? Ah, tá aqui. Quero por essa. Beleza. Aí. Tá. Milton falou que deixou a carteira dele. Ah! Milton falou que ele tava aqui, né? Que deixou a carteira cair. Será que tá aqui ainda? Uma fotografia de um casal feliz com algumas palavras escritas no verso. Milton e Pipa para... O quê?
So, Mr. Hooks and Nurse Hawkins are an item. Those two have hidden their affections well.
O Milton dá beijinho na boquinha. Tá. Tem uma portinha, né? Olha. Acho que deve ser aquela ali, ó. Deve ser aqui, mas antes eu vou dar uma olhada aqui também. Tá, o lixo tava... Que é isso? Oh, não! Zona de quarentena. Oh, não! Oh, não. Oh, não. Tá, ali a entrada, mas... Tá, foi aqui que eu saí? Não. Tá, foi por aqui que saiu. Vamos voltar lá. Eu ainda estou ouvindo Skulls. Tá com cara de vir cutscene? Quando estiver procurando um cidadão, lembre-se de usar seus sentidos vampíricos. Beleza então, né, mano? É nóis, mano. O velho necrotério, tá. Vamos procurar por coisas. Se tá abandonado, deve ter muita coisa aqui pra procurar. Olha. Eu tô ouvindo barulho. Ah, ó. Se eu não me engano, meu irmão. Vou entrar aqui. Beleza, aqui não tem nada. Tô ouvindo esse caos aqui, mano. Vou entrar aqui. Ó, tem sangue no chão. Tá vendo? Não tá aparecendo no meu sentido. Acho que é porque é sangue seco. Tá. Beleza. Nossa, tá abandonado mesmo, né? A vigilância sanitária chegando aqui. Tá, uns bagulho louco aqui. Tem dinheiro aqui. Beleza. Aqui não tem nada. Tá. Ele tá trancado. Vamos subir. Ah! Sabia. Olha lá, ó.
Behavior is similar to the infected William Bishop. Must be the same strain. This sickness moves faster than influenza.
Oi? De sangue, mano. Tá, vai pra... aqui, ó. Aqui tá aberto? Não. Aqui tá fechado. Aqui tem dinheiro. Tá. Vou procurar aqui agora. Aqui tem coisa? Tem. Álcool.
This key will surely grant me access to the basement.
Beleza. Tem alguma coisa aqui pra mim? Não tem, não tem. Tá, tenho que ir lá no basement. Tem bicho aqui, cadê? Ai! Na minha frente, mano. Ó. Esse aqui é mais forte, hein? Dá o dinheiro aí pra mim. Tá.
Balls of Mars, fortifiers. As popular as they are ineffective. But they do contain iron tartrate, and that might prove itself useful.
Tá, aqui não tem mais nada. Vamos descer. Dá pra subir mais um pouco ainda. Vou subir mais um. Que vai que tem a coisa aqui. Tá, aqui não tem. Essa porta não abre. Aqui tem nada. Tá, vamos descer então. Acho que é no necrotério aqui. Opa! Eu vi, hein? Eu vi, hein? Vocês viram também? O vampiro sumiu daqui, mano. Tinha um vampiro aqui. Um vampiro vampiresco mesmo.
These skulls feed from corpses and the husks of animals.
Cadê?
They're not after blood.
Tá, vamos procurar aqui primeiro. Tá, pelo jeito aqui não tem nada. Vamos seguir por aqui. Eu vi um entrando aqui. Ah, ele aí, ó. Ah! Ah! Ó! Cadê o seu dinheiro? Tá, aqui não tem nada. Nem aqui, pelo jeito. Deixa eu ver, desse lado também não tem. Opa, aqui tem. 3 só, mano? Pelo amor de Deus. Vamos entrar aqui? Tá, aqui pelo jeito também não tem nada. Opa, tem um cara ali. Deixa eu ver aqui. Aqui vai pro corredor que eu tava. Que lugar é esse aqui? Eu tava aqui? Ah, tá. Isso é a continuação daqui. Tá. Eu vou investigar aquele corpo. Mas primeiro vamos ver aqui. Não tem mais nada. Aqui não tem nada. E aqui tem um negócio. Você adquiriu um novo tipo de arma de mão oposta. Tá. Equipe aí a parte... Tá. Escritório do médico legista de Pembroke. Relatório de investigação. Falecido Samuel Connor. Raça caucasiano, sexo masculino, idade 39. Endereço de residência desconhecido, profissão pescador. Tipo de morte, natural. Provável causa da morte, pneumonia de progressão rápida causada por consolidação pulmonar de origem viral. Gripe espanhola. Participantes do exame. Dr. Corcoran Tippett e enfermeira Gwent Brannigan. Nome e assinatura do médico legista.
Mr. Connor's injuries don't match the report. I'd better look into this.
Tá.
Multiple abrasions and scarring on the arms and legs. Old and distinctive injuries of a sailor or a fisherman.
Ok.
Traces of a pinkish foam at the corner of the lips. Some sort of drug overdose, perhaps?
Acho que superdosaram o cara, hein?
The chest was originally opened to perform the operation. The sutures are clean, but the chest has been reopened. A puncture over the left lung, possibly a chest tube insertion. Not the cleanest work, but I think it was successful. Signs of internal bleeding. So, Dr. Tippett's anesthetics were incorrectly dosed, causing the patient's death. And then he tried to operate on him again. Tippett has made an egregious error. It's time we talked.
Tá, Dr. Tippett fez caca. E aqui... tem outro corpo aqui. Opa! John Doe.
These scowls can be so ferocious. I'm not sure I can defeat them without becoming stronger. To drink blood is so tempting.
Tem um negócio aqui, ó.
Sodium hypochlorite. Dangerous to administer, but efficient in the proper dosage.
Cadê? Tinha bicho aqui, mano. Ele tá... Ou era poder do bichão? Tá, espera. Deixa eu pegar mais coisas. Não dá pra abrir essa porta. E essa aqui dá? Também não. Beleza, ó. Vou criar alguma coisa aqui, né? Tá. Tratamento. Soro de sangue fraco. Ok. Tá. Resfriado, bronquite, pneumonia, sepse, fadiga. Porra, legal, cara. Dá pra cuidar dos bagulho aqui, mano. Dá pra eu melhorar aqui? Não. E aqui? Dá pra produzir mais coisa? Não. E esse? Não, também. Não, beleza. Ó, então sabemos o que ocorreu aqui no necrotério. E descobrimos que o querido doutor não é tão querido assim, né? Já que ele... Opa! Tá. Ah, eles estão vindo aqui pra se alimentar, mano. Vem aqui, tiozão. Tá, acho que dá pra sair por aqui, né? Tá. Beleza. Quantidade de XP recebida ao abraçar cidadãos depende diretamente da qualidade de sangue deles. Ah, tá. Então, quanto mais pistas eu tenho dos caras lá que eu faço as perguntas, melhor o sangue deles. Mas como eu não vou matá-los, eu só vou induzi-los a fazerem coisas corretas da vida. Como, por exemplo, ir lá e falar pra nossa querida enfermeira: por que você não disse que tinha um caso com o Milton? Eu podia ajudar vocês dois a fugirem. E talvez mandar um dinheiro pra você e pra sua mãe, já que eu sou um médico rico. Ajudar talvez aquele cara que tá com problema no braço, talvez. Também dá. Então assim, mano, dá pra você ser legal nesse jogo, tá ligado? Você não precisa ser um vampiro ruim. Você pode ser, né? Você não precisa ser um Drácula de Bram Stoker. Você pode ser um Edward Cullen. Ou um Carlisle Cullen, que é o pai do coisa. Tem um negadinho aqui, um negadinho. Tá. Nota pública. Previna a gripe espanhola. Cubra tosses e espirros com lenço. Ande para o trabalho, não guspa. Beba seu próprio copo. Evite multidões. Em caso de doença, recomende-se repouso. Visita médica. Para fazer uma máscara. Ah, eles ensinam a fazer máscara. Aplique sobre a boca e o nariz como exibido na imagem. Ah, usem máscara, hein? Até o jogo tá falando pra vocês usarem máscara. Então, por favor, usem máscara para não propagar não só a gripe, como também outras doenças virais que passam por saliva, cuspe e espirros. Tá. Procurar cidadãos. Pipa-ro... É tu mesmo que eu quero conversar, moleque.
Good evening, nurse.
Good evening, Dr. Reid.
Ah, não dá, acho que eu tenho que falar com o Milton. Dorothy Crane, ela mesma que eu tenho que entregar o bagulho. Senhora Dorothy.
Finally, you've returned, Doctor. Did you find anything of value?
Opa!
Yes, nurse.
You've worked your first miracle, Doctor. Now, this patient here needs immediate treatment.
Duty calls. When the storm has passed, I'll show you how to mix the remedy yourself with the same basic ingredients.
Many thanks, Doctor. When you've finished, you ought to report to Dr. Swansea in his office. He's been looking for you. Seemed pressing.
Ok. Falar com você, então,
Good
né?
evening, Doctor.
Tá, aqui não. Aqui não e aqui não.
Goodbye,
Vou falar
Mrs.
com ele
Goswick.
direto. Deixa eu ver aqui, mano. Ah, ele tá com fadiga.
Good evening, Mr. Goswick. How are you?
I'm okay.
Do you need any help?
I'm afraid I may, sir. I don't mean to be a burden.
You are not a burden, sir. Healing you is my responsibility.
And you have my gratitude for that.
Deixa eu perguntar sobre a garganta dele de novo.
How painful.
So painful, I'd rather not.
I'll let you get some...
Good evening, sir. Doctor.
Será que se eu falar pra mãe dele que ele tá com fadiga vai dar alguma coisa? Tipo, moça,
I will not let you
você
down,
está
my
deixando
boy.
seu filho cansado. Por que você é tão cruel? Por que tá
I'm
carregando?
alright. Don't waste your time with me.
Good evening, Doctor. How is my son doing?
Do you require medical attention as well, Mrs. Goswick?
I have other concerns right now, Doctor. But I'm fine, thank you.
Goodbye, Mrs. Goswick.
Deixa eu ver.
Good evening, sir.
E ele? Tá, ele tá melhorando. A qualidade de sangue dele melhorou. Tá, você.
My sweet.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Tá.
Goodbye.
I will not let you down, my boy.
Deixa eu ver o médico.
Good doctor. Thank you. And you are?
I am Thoreau Strickland, Dr. Thoreau Strickland. I'm a great admirer of your work, Dr. Reid.
Ah, que legal, um outro médico.
What do you think of Dr. Ackroyd's aversion to modern medical methods?
It's a shame he's so narrow-minded. Dr. Swansea taught me that science is about exploring uncharted territory. I'm convinced that's true.
With the influenza and all that's going on, you should put your differences aside, don't you think? Why is it so difficult to work together?
I believe that if Dr. Ackroyd had been the one to discover the transfusion process, he would be the first to recommend its use.
So you believe it's just a question of jealousy and pride?
Dr. Ackroyd is as proud as he is blinded by his
Pessoa que é assim
obsolete
mesmo,
concept of
orgulhosa.
medical science.
Tá, conte-me sobre você,
Please,
meu
could you
jovem
tell me
rapaz.
something about yourself?
I'm a great admirer of your work concerning blood transfusion, Dr. Reid. I run my own experiments. I'm convinced it's the future.
Ah,
What made you choose to be a doctor?
I'm not ashamed to admit you and your work have inspired me. I am honored to have the opportunity to work by your side.
será um prazer ajudar.
It's always a pleasure to share scientific and medical knowledge with someone eager to learn. I'll be glad to help you if I can.
This epidemic may be the century's most terrible disaster, but I'm convinced that we, as doctors, are the only ones able to defeat it.
Conte-me sobre os seus experimentos.
I based my technique on my mentor's research. He helped me perfect my method. What is yours?
I'd rather not talk about it. For now, it's just theories and first approach. My process is purely experimental and unsuccessful.
As long as you're cautious and methodical, you may remain empty-handed, but you won't fail.
You're not the first one to warn me, but I am convinced knowledge is the main weapon against the ravages of this
Ah,
epidemic.
foi o que eu disse pro cara lá.
What can you tell me about the Pembroke?
Well, it has always been an honor to work with Dr. Swansea. But with your arrival, I can't think of a better opportunity to learn about blood transfusion.
You seem quite optimistic. It's a rare and precious attitude in these difficult times.
I'm convinced that this epidemic is a test of endurance and dedication for us men of science.
Questions remain about our capacity to resolve the situation.
True. Last summer, during the first wave of the epidemic, I used to joke with Milton about the extra work. We're not smiling now.
Do you need help with anything in particular?
Well, yes, maybe. I'm waiting for a batch of products I ordered for my personal research, yet my supplier seems to have vanished.
Do you want me to play the errand boy for you?
Oh no, Dr. Reid. But if you went personally to his shop, what with your reputation and all, he wouldn't dare to refuse the products I need.
I see. Well, give me the address, for I may pass by if I have time. Tell me more about your willingness to experiment with new medical techniques.
Harvey Fiddick is a patient suffering from a severe injury that could cripple him if not treated correctly. I'm convinced your blood transfusion technique could help him.
What is it you really want? To save him, or to prove your point?
Fair question. I want nothing but to save my patient, Dr. Reid. Especially since I know Mr. Fiddick's story.
This personal involvement could also appear to be a lack of impartiality. You must know that a good surgeon must remain neutral.
I agree. But that does not excuse Dr. Ackroyd's behavior. A man who did not even take time to converse with his patient.
Do you think keeping his distance was a mistake?
All I know is that I'm taking care of human beings with desires, hopes, and fears. Not some biological machine comprised of blood, bones, and flesh.
Tell me Mr. Fiddick's story.
Our first diagnosis was compromised because Mr. Fiddick lied to us about the real origin of his injury. He first claimed it was an accident.
But why would he hide such crucial information from us?
Because he is a proud father, ashamed of putting his children at risk because of his own negligence.
Goodbye, Dr.
Aham, Sr. Fiddick. Pode falar a
Good
verdade.
evening, Mr. Fiddick.
Good evening, Dr. Reid.
Tell me about your injury, Harvey. Why do you feel so guilty about it?
My wife died because of me. And now I may lose everything because I've been careless enough to hurt myself. What an arsehole.
How could your job be responsible for your wife's death?
I was working a double. She went out to bring me a hot meal and got caught in a German bomb raid.
You can't hold yourself responsible for your injury, Mr. Fiddick, unless you tried to hurt yourself.
Of course I didn't hurt myself. But I can't work until my arm is fixed. My children need to eat, Doctor.
Goodbye for now, Mr. Fiddick. I'll see you later.
Deixa eu ver um negócio. Ele tá saudável, ele não tem doença.
My sweet girl.
Deixa eu ver aqui.
Dr. Reid, may I help you?
What can you tell me about the epidemic, Nurse Crane? I've been out of touch since I've come back to England.
Everyday folk don't know how bad it is. The papers certainly won't tell them. Not as long as the war is raging on, anyway.
News on the front stated that the Spanish flu was under control, at least in Britain.
It seemed to be for a while, but that was only last summer. It returned with a vengeance just over a month ago.
What can you tell me about our patients here at Pembroke?
This hospital was founded to help the East End poor and needy. But since the war and the quarantine, we've had all manner of folk.
Can you be more specific?
Well, veterans, the elderly, dock workers. We even have a few mental patients. If there's space, we take them.
For how long have you been working here, Nurse Crane?
I first volunteered at the Pembroke in 1911, a few months after Dr. Swansea was appointed.
And before you arrived here?
If you must know, this was my first job.
Well, Dr. Swansea certainly has confidence in your abilities. Are you in charge of the nursing staff?
Not in an official capacity, but the Pembroke doesn't always work above board, so to speak.
What about medical protocols?
Dr. Reid, We don't have the money and resources here at the Pembroke like they do in the West End. We do what we can.
How is the duty roster organized?
Everybody works until they can't. If there's time, they'll eat a meal and shed a silent tear.
I'll see you later, Nurse Crane.
Deixa eu ver se ela tá precisando de alguma coisa. Tá, ela tá saudável. Ah, exatamente com quem eu queria falar.
I'm quite busy right now.
Tell me, Waverly, what do you think of Dr. Strickland's enthusiasm for his experimental research?
Strickland is playing with his patients' lives for pride and glory. Now that, sir, is unethical.
Are you thinking about something in particular?
Harvey Fiddick needs delicate surgery. I believe we should stick to the usual procedure, but my young colleague obviously disagrees.
And are you not afraid that your rivalry with Strickland may be blinding you?
Rivalry? I guess you could call it that. But I will never be childish enough to let my personal feelings affect my judgment.
Why do you wish to lead this surgery?
I strongly believe that Mr. Fiddick should not be butchered to test an unproven procedure.
I really hope you're right about this, Dr. Ackroyd. I am trusting your judgment on this.
I'm not the kind of man who runs away from his responsibilities, Dr. Reid.
Ah, sério?
There is no need for you to be looking over my shoulder.
E o cara que você deixou lá dentro do necrotério? Hein, querido? Eu tô precisando de mais coisas pra desbloquear aqui.
Thank you for your time. We'll talk later.
Tá. Thelma, Pippa Hawkins, Thomas, Thelma. Beatrice, Mortimer, Beatrice, Milton. Ah, é com você mesmo que eu queria falar.
Good
Estava
evening,
junto com
nurse.
ele
I'm Dr.
no
Jonathan Reid,
necrotério.
the new surgeon here at the Pembroke.
Dr. Swansea has already told us about you, sir. I'm Nurse Gwyneth Brannigan. Welcome to the Pembroke Hospital.
Did he really? It's a good thing I wasn't hoping to keep a low profile.
All members of staff have already read about your new blood transfusion technique. Dr. Swansea made sure of that.
I see. Well, I'm a little surprised, but I suppose I'll just have to deal with this unexpected notoriety.
You must know, blood transfusions are Dr. Swansea's primary subject of research. He is convinced it is the future.
How are things here?
Not good, to say the least. We're struggling against an invisible enemy, more lethal than any bullet from a gun. It's hard, Doctor.
An invisible enemy? Quite a poetic term for a disease, especially from a
Todo
nurse.
mundo usa
Sorry,
óculos do
doctor.
Harry Potter, mano.
These last few weeks have been exhausting. We could all do with a good night's sleep.
Do you think this hospital can survive the epidemic?
We are all volunteers here, and we're trying to hold fast, but how do we beat an invisible killer? Some nurses have already resigned.
I'm not familiar with all the staff yet. Perhaps you could help me.
Brilliant professionals, most of them. Dr. Swansea has a gift for recruiting talent.
Most of them. Is there a problem I should know about, nurse?
It would be inappropriate for me to speak ill of a colleague.
Is there anyone that stands out?
Well, I have never met someone as dedicated as Dr. Tippett's. He should be a standard for us all here. If only he were younger.
Why should his age be a problem?
I guess it's fair to say he's always pushing himself to the limits. He just doesn't know when to stop and get some rest.
Nurse Brannigan, if you do know something, please tell me. Anything you say will be held in confidence.
No. I may disagree with some conduct, but in the end, everybody is doing their best.
Why does Dr. Tippett claim you're the main reason he keeps working, despite his fatigue?
If it wasn't for him, I probably would have left the Pembroke years ago.
Dr. Tippett does not think of you as just a nurse anymore, does he?
If you're suggesting he's not taking my gender into consideration when it comes to medical practice and knowledge, I really hope he doesn't.
Tell me what Dr. Tippett did. I know his mistake caused a patient's death.
If I had not covered up his error, Dr. Tippett would have been fired from this hospital. I could not let that happen.
You can't allow your emotions to dictate your conduct concerning patients, Nurse Brannigan.
Look around you, Dr. Reid. Do you really think we can afford to lose a brilliant practitioner like Dr. Tippett in our situation?
Perhaps you did it with the best intentions, Nurse Brannigan, but you took a great risk. Must I remind you that a man died?
You mean you've never made a mistake? Never covered your tracks? Come on, Doctor. I wasn't born yesterday.
Goodbye, Nurse. Call me.
We are overwhelmed by this horrifying epidemic.
Good evening.
Dr. Reid.
You're exhausting yourself, Corcoran. Maybe you should think about preserving your strength.
No. We must keep on healing all those poor souls. We are the last rampart before chaos. Once more, unto the breach.
Sua atitude é irresponsável.
Your attitude is irresponsible, Doctor. Believe me, I've seen so many medical errors caused by exhaustion during the war.
You're right. This is a war, Dr. Reid, and I don't intend to surrender.
Corcoran, I want you to tell me about Mr. Connor. How did he die? What happened?
He was my patient. He died because of my mistake. That's the blunt truth.
Why not stop practicing?
Are you mad? I killed that man, I admit it, and it won't happen again. I have saved so many lives since then.
What was the nature of the mistake?
It was a twofold error. My diagnosis was wrong, and the administered dosage was too strong.
Who was this patient?
I don't know. Some sick man from the docks, maybe a fisherman. I had no time to talk with him. No one claimed a body.
I will cover for you, Dr. Tippett, by keeping what happened to Mr. Connor to myself.
I don't know what to say, actually. I can't exactly force
Ele
you to
cometeu
become my
erro,
accomplice.
mas ele é
You didn't
bom
force
médico.
me. This is my decision to make. I believe you're still of use to the hospital, considering the situation.
Then I can make you this promise. As soon as the epidemic is eradicated, I will resign.
Oxi.
What will you do after your resignation? Do you have a plan?
I always fancied visiting Cyprus.
Ai, que
Such a beautiful
chique.
island. I could buy a house there, by the sea. Read poetry, and wait for death.
Acho que
Goodbye,
não tem
Doc.
mais. Deixa eu só ver um negocinho aqui. Ah, tá, ele tá saudável, tá melhor agora. Milton! Ah, Milton. Exatamente o que eu queria.
Good evening,
ver.
Milton.
Good evening, Doctor. Still trying to save lives?
Fazer o quê, né?
I have some good news, Milton.
What? The epidemic's over?
I retrieved your wallet, with all the money and a certain picture.
Well, yeah, Pippa Hawkins is my girl. So what? Is it the difference of skin colour that bothers you?
Not at
No.
all, Milton.
Good. Please, take this money anyway. To remind you to keep your mouth shut. Not everybody is as broad-minded as you, Dr. Reid.
Ah, é verdade, mano. Naquela época era uma
What's
bosta.
going on between you and Nurse Hawkins?
Pippa's tired.
As pessoas não podiam se
Tired of all this
relacionar com
shit.
pessoas de outra forma.
Tired of all
Uma
those
bosta.
corpses piling up. She's as
Coisa mais
depressed as I
idiota
am.
do mundo. Todo mundo tem que se unir e ter
During the
relacionamento com quem
war,
quiser, ué.
I witnessed a few couples, just like you, come together in difficult circumstances. It can be very damaging.
Maybe you're right. But we support each other. And that's all that matters.
You do realize you could both get fired. Hospital staff are not meant to have intimate relationships with one another.
Come on, Dr. Reid. Do you know how many rules are broken in this hospital every day just to keep it running? There's nothing wrong with what we're doing.
Goodbye, Milton.
Vamos deixar quieto, né, mano? Porque o cara... Coitado, né?
Another night with the glorious
Desconhecido? Deixa eu falar com ela.
Good evening, Miss.
I need blood, Doctor.
I'll leave you.
Cadê a enfermeira Pippa Hawkins? Thelma, Dorothy, desconhecido, Harvey, Dorothy Crane, Harvey. Tem uma pessoa aqui que tá zoada.
Thelma Howcroft said she was being watched by vampire hunters. Where are they hiding? I should investigate.
Carta amassada. Meu amor, finalmente consegui o dinheiro que faltava para pagar a taxa cobrada pelo motorista da ambulância para levá-la ao hospital. Não se preocupe com nada além da sua própria saúde. Estamos cuidando de tudo. Perguntarei para alguns vizinhos e eles me disseram que o Sr. Hooks até que é um vigarista honesto. Ele pede dinheiro extra em troca de uma cama, mas a cama é mesmo garantida. Desculpe por ter recusado a pagar antes. Agora percebo que o importante é que você melhore logo. Ouvi dizer que o Hospital Pembroke é um bom lugar, apesar das suas atividades duvidosas desde Milton Hooks. Prometo que está tudo certo agora. Verei você em sua cama limpa assim que possível. Com carinho, Nikolai. Puta, o cara morreu de gripe, mano. Tá, a Thelma disse que tinha vampiros espionando ela aqui, né? Vamos procurar, hein?
I understand you must be very angry about this unfair situation. I managed to arrange to have you buried in the same mass grave as your wife. I hope that might help.
It's locked, all right. It's locked.
Tá, quem é aquele cara?
I'm sorry you ended up on my plain and cold medical bench, sir. I understand you must be very angry about this unfair situation. I managed to...
It's locked, all right.
Tá, aqui...
You don't mind if I search your pockets, do you, sir? You won't need any of these anyway. I'm not stealing from you, mister. I'm only redistributing your belongings to people who need them more than you.
Ah, tá
You
bom.
see, no one has claimed your body, sir. So it would be such a shame to bury you with your valuables. I will not forget you, sir. And I thank you for your generous donation.
Que filho da polícia. Ah, eu vou pegar esse cara. Vou falar, ô, o que você tá fazendo, mano? Pode devolver o que você pegou lá.
It's locked.
Never ceases to amaze me.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Reid.
Always a pleasure to meet a colleague, sir. Especially when he was supposedly dead.
A colleague? Are you a doctor too?
Not anymore, sir. I used to be Dr. Rakesh Chadana. Now, I'm just Mr. Chadana, pawnbroker and humble guardian of this morgue.
What do you mean? You used to be a doctor. Was your license revoked?
No, sir. It is just that I like to be precise. I run a little pawn shop while taking care of the dead. But I used to be a real doctor.
Do you work here alone?
Yes, very easy work, sir. All I have to do is watch a few bodies. The situation was very different when the main morgue was still open.
Why do you have to watch these bodies?
Because these poor fellows have no names. We keep them in case someone comes looking for the missing. Sadly, very rarely happens.
Why close the hospital's main morgue?
It was for sanitary reasons after the beginning of the epidemic. Cadavers had to be moved to the nearest mass grave.
Are you afraid or uneasy being surrounded by so many corpses?
Why should I? These bodies are empty vessels. Flesh left to decay. Poof! No soul anymore. All gone.
An interesting point of view. And quite an exotic one, too. Most people fear, or at least have a respect, for dead flesh.
Sir, as a medic during the war, I learned to face my death and the death of others. It's the pain we have to tame, not death itself.
How did you get this job?
After I left the army, I worked as an undertaker down by the docks. A dangerous place with many an unpleasant business there. Milton Hooks helped me get a job here.
Have we met before?
I don't think so, sir. Why?
When we first talked, you said you were glad to meet me since I was reported dead.
A funny story, sir. Your sister came here a few nights ago. You were missing, and she was looking for your body. She must be very relieved now.
Ah, tá. Super.
How dare you steal from the dead, Rakesh? Is that what your pawnbrokers is really about?
These people are dead, sir. What they possessed could be useful for the living. And I'm sure they would agree if they could speak.
Respeite os mortos.
You should show respect for the dead. What about their loved ones who may treasure these items you sell?
The bodies I watch over are the unwanted and undesired, sir. I would never deprive anyone of their family artifacts.
Ah, vai.
A pawnbroker? I expect you get all types of people here.
Yes, sir. All kind of people. For I sell all kind of goods.
Who comes here to trade with you? It's very unhygienic, even unsafe. Diseases can spread. For the customers, for the hospital.
I'm very cautious, sir. I've been a doctor, remember? And all my clients are good people. In fact, I think I only know good people.
What kind of goods?
Sí.
With the quarantine, it's not always easy to buy things. So I trade, I exchange. Some people sell, some others buy. I like to help.
Sei.
Since you're not afraid of dying, do you believe in life after death, Rakesh?
No. I believe we must do all the good we can while alive. For our time is short, and the obstacles are endless.
Do you think you would enjoy immortality as a concept?
I don't think so. Don't mistake me. I love life, and I'd like to live a long life. But everything has to decay, sir. Even goodwill.
Do you really believe goodwill cannot last?
As I said, sir, everything decays. If I was to never die, goodness, I would be bored or worse. And I like to be helpful, sir.
Quite depressing, wouldn't you say?
Yes, but the good news is, we'll all die before losing our humanity, sir.
So you're ready to die?
No, I am not. I don't fear death, for I won't see it. What troubles me is the pain my death will inflict to those I know.
You're a wise man, Mr. Chidana.
No, Dr. Reid. I am a foolish man. But I like to think otherwise.
Please show me what you have to sell.
Of course. It's just trinkets and curios, really. But I'm sure they can be useful.
Ele vende essas coisas. Ah, vou vender, mano. Não vou usar mesmo. Beleza.
It never ceases to amaze me how you, the dead, seem peaceful and lost at the same time.
I cannot enter.
Deixa eu falar com... Oh, quem é você? Ah, tá, é a pessoa desconhecida. Vou falar com o Milton, mano. Ele tá fazendo alguma merda.
Good evening.
Good evening, Doc.
Admit it. Nurse Hawkins is more than your lover. She's also your partner in crime.
Of course she is. How else could I tell which bed is free? I need to know that.
Have you no shame?
Don't you see this city is crumbling down? Today, people are ready to pay to get a hospital bed. Tomorrow, we may be fighting for food.
Tell me why you're extorting money from some of the patients here.
If a patient wants a bed, he'll have to pay me a little fee. That's all.
Where did you get the idea for such an immoral scam?
Funny you should ask. The first time it was from a patient who bribed me to get a bed. It's only then I realized I could make a fortune.
Goodbye, Milton.
Ah, cadê a pipa Hawkins? Mas tu mesmo que eu vou... Ô, minha senhora.
Good evening.
Good evening, Doc.
Pepper, I know you're very close to Milton Hooks.
Yes. Milton Hooks is my man. If you want to report me for that, just feel free, Doctor.
I have no intention of reporting you, Nurse Hawkins. But are you aware of the risks?
The rules say I won't be allowed to work as a nurse anymore. But here at the Pembroke, we break rules all the time.
Is he worth the risk?
Hey, I'm no perfect woman, and Milton is not the finest bloke. But we do our best to get by. That's all any of us can hope for nowadays.
What steps are you prepared to take to feel more useful?
I don't know yet. My sister believes that the real fight is in the streets nowadays. Maybe she's right. Maybe this is what I must do.
And what about Milton Hooks? Does he share your point of view?
For Milton, any change means more comfort and more peace. I disagree.
If you feel that saving lives is not useful enough, perhaps it means that you've lost faith.
On the contrary, my faith has never been stronger. Maybe we are all just too proud to face up to the fact that science cannot compete with God.
Milton cheats patients out of their money at this hospital, Pippa. Are you his accomplice?
Yes, I am.
Is this your definition of being useful? By abusing the sick and poor?
No. It is my definition of getting out of this useless life once and for all.
Why do you do it?
Why not? Most of the sick who paid for a bed are already dead, or will be soon. Don't you see the futility of all this?
How can you be affected by the misery around you, and be so heartless at the same time? Which is the real you, Nurse Hawkins?
I could ask you the same question, Dr. Reid. Are you more real when you lie to a dying patient, or when you grant him useless medication?
Whose idea was it?
What difference does it make? We did it together, and I'm guilty as charged.
Answer my question.
It was my idea first, even though Milton would say it was his, to protect me.
Goodbye, Nurse Hawkins.
Então ela que é a cuzona, mano. Deixa eu vir aqui. Que eu preciso fazer uns breguenite aqui, mano. Ó, abriu aqui a porta. Tá, vamos lá. Fadiga, anemia, sepse, pneumonia, bronquite. Eu vou fazer um desse. Vou fazer um desse. Tá. Minhas armas. Tá, vamos ver. Arma nem vou usar muito, né? Mas tá, o reciclável eu vendi. Vamos tunar meu personagem. Vou aumentar minha vida. E vou aumentar a minha boa forma. E daí, melhorar minha capacidade de sangue. E mordida. Pronto. Nevralgia. Loreta Swanborn. Tá. Clay Cox é fadiga. Ok. Falta 2 pessoas ainda desse lugar que eu tenho que mexer. Tá, eu tenho que curar o Clay Cox. Tenho que curar o Disson da... Putz. Tá estável, grave, saudável e estável. Beleza.
The flower's dying. It needs water.
Eu não tenho água aqui, tem? Tem que ter frasco pra eu jogar água lá. Eu acho. Enfim, galera, eu vou terminar este vídeo por aqui. Nos vemos no próximo episódio. Até mais.